Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. All of this just for one night in another man's bed. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I knew instantly that everything was about to change. Late-night hospital calls never bring good news, especially when they mention your 19-year-old son's name. Mr. Patterson, this is Dr. Martinez at Riverside General. Your son, Jake, has been admitted with serious injuries. You need to get here right away. The wrench slipped from my hand and clattered to the garage floor. Oil dripped from the underside of the Chevy I'd been working on, leaving black stains as I scrambled for my keys. 23 years as a mechanical engineer had taught me one thing. When systems fail, they fail hard. I just never thought the broken system would be my family. The drive to the hospital blurred past in flashes of red lights and panic. My wife, Linda, should have been beside me, but she'd been working late again. Third time this week. At 45, she was obsessed with making partner at the law firm, spending long nights with her boss, Richard Blackwood. I stormed through the ER doors, heart pounding. Jake Patterson. I gasped at the nurse. He's my son. She led me down a sterile hallway that reeked of disinfectant and dread. Jake was in bed 3, his left leg suspended in traction, his face covered in bruises that made me sick to my stomach. Dad. His voice cracked like it hadn't since he was 12. Jesus, Jake, what happened? He looked away, then back at me with eyes far too old for 19. I went home early from practice. Wanted to surprise you and Mom with my grades. A cold weight settled in my chest. I heard noises upstairs. Thought, maybe you and Mom were. He swallowed. But your truck wasn't there, so I went up to check. The steady beeping of the machines felt like a countdown to a truth I didn't want to hear. I found Mom with Mr. Blackwood, Dad, in your bed. The words hit me like a hammer to the ribs. 22 years of marriage. 22 years thinking I knew the woman who shared my name, my house, my life. I started yelling. Jake continued, anger giving strength to his voice. Told him to get out. Then his security guys showed up. Security guys? 2 big men in suits. Said I was trespassing and had to leave. When I refused, he gestured to his leg. They threw me down the stairs. Said if I told anyone, they'd finish the job. The rage that took over me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It burned through me like molten metal. Where are they now? Probably still at the house. Dad, I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong. I said, my voice low, controlled, dangerous. I kissed his forehead and walked out of that hospital a different man than the one who had gone in. The drive home took 12 minutes. 12 minutes to decide exactly what I was going to do to the people who tore my family apart. My house looked unchanged. The same white picket fence I'd painted last spring. The same rose bushes Linda had planted for our anniversary. The same cheerful mailbox with the Pattersons written in blue letters. But everything inside me had shifted. I parked across the street and waited. Lights glowed upstairs. Richard's silver BMW sat in my driveway like a trophy meant to taunt me. I'd known Richard Blackwood for 3 years, ever since Linda started working at his firm. He was everything I wasn't, tall, polished, wealthy. He wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage. I'd always felt like a greased monkey standing next to him at firm events. Now I understood why. I opened the glove box and pulled out the .38 my father had left me. It wasn't loaded, but they wouldn't know that. Sometimes the threat is more powerful than the act. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Why would they lock it? They owned everything now, my house, my wife, my dignity. I could hear voices upstairs. Linda's laugh, breathy, satisfied, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. My jaw clenched. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, boots heavy on the hardwood. The bedroom door was wide open. They hadn't even bothered to shut it. Linda saw me first. Sitting up in my bed, she clutched to her chest, dark hair tousled. Her face went pale when she saw what was in my hand. Tom, I can explain. Shut up. Richard rolled over lazily, smirking like he had all the time in the world. Tom, let's be civilized about this. Civilized. I laughed, the sound harsh and ugly in the quiet room. You broke my son's leg, you bastard. That was a misunderstanding. Jake became violent. He's 19. I stepped closer. Finally, Richard's smug expression cracked. He reached for his phone. I wouldn't. I warned, raising the gun. Where are your guys? Downstairs, Linda whispered. Tom, please, just let me explain. 22 years. My voice was cold now. 22 years I worked 60-hour weeks to buy this house, to pay for law school, to give you everything you ever wanted. And this is how you repay me. You don't understand, she sobbed. Richard and I, we have something special. Something you, and I never had. That cut deeper than finding them together. 2 decades of marriage dismissed in a single breath. Get dressed. Both of you. Get out of my house. Richard reached for his pants. Tom, we should discuss compensation. Compensation? I growled. For what? Screwing my wife in my bed while your hired thugs put my son in the hospital. Now see here. I fired a round into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Linda screamed. I said, get out. They scrambled to get dressed, tripping over each other. Richard didn't look so smug anymore. Linda tried to grab a few things, but I stopped her. Leave it. You don't take a thing from this house. As they reached the door, I called after them. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Richard turned, some arrogance returning now that he was dressed. If you threaten me again, Tom, I'll have to involve the police. I smiled, and he actually took a step back. Go ahead. Tell them how you and your security team put my son in the hospital. I'm sure they'd love that story. They left without another word. By the time the sun came up, the house felt like a tomb. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands. They were still shaking, but not from fear. This was something colder, more deliberate. My phone buzzed. Linda. Tom, please, can we talk? I hung up. 5 minutes later, a different number called. Richard, you can't just throw us out, Tom. This is as much Linda's house as yours. Not anymore, I said flatly and ended the call. By noon, the texts started coming in from friends, from neighbors, from Linda's family. Word had spread fast. Tom, you overreacted. You scared Linda half to death. Richard is a respected man in this town. Think about your reputation. Reputation. That made me laugh. Where were these people last night when my son lay bleeding on the stairs? I drove back to the hospital to check on Jake. His girlfriend, Emily, was sitting by his bed, holding his hand. Dad, Jake said softly, are you okay? I'm fine. My voice was steadier than I felt. But things are going to change. Jake nodded. He'd seen me angry before, but this was different. This was war. That evening, Danny came over. Danny had been my best friend since college. He was also a private investigator. I heard what happened, he said, dropping a manila folder on the table. You're going to want to see this. Inside were photos, grainy shots of Linda and Richard together at bars, at restaurants, at a cabin upstate. Some dated back over a year. She's been seeing him since before Christmas, Danny said. And this isn't just an affair. Richard has pulled with the city council. He's been using her as leverage, passing him sensitive case information. So it wasn't just betrayal of the heart. It was betrayal of everything I stood for. What do? I asked. Danny leaned back. You hit him where it hurts. His reputation, his career, his wallet. I can get you proof. You just have to be willing to use it. And I was. Over the next 2 weeks, we gathered everything. Photos, emails, text messages. When we were done, the folder was thick enough to ruin 2 lives. I sent copies to Richard's wife, to the senior partners at the firm, to the city council, and to the press. The fallout was swift. Richard was forced to resign. The firm suspended Linda pending investigation. Their golden reputations crumbled overnight. But I wasn't done. I filed for divorce and full custody of Jake. My lawyer didn't have to work hard. The judge took one look at the hospital report and granted my petition. Linda cried in the courtroom, begged me not to take everything away. You already did, I said quietly and walked out. Jake came home 3 weeks later, his leg in a cast, but his spirit unbroken. We rebuilt the house together, one piece at a time, new locks, new furniture, new rules. It wasn't easy. Nights were the hardest. The bed felt too big, the silence too heavy. But every morning, I woke up knowing I hadn't let them win. One night, months later, Jake and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. "You ever regret it?" he asked. I thought about it for a long time. "No," I said finally, "because sometimes you have to burn down the old life to build a better one." And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace.